Well, hello, and welcome to Bio 211 Final Exam Review. I'm preparing this for a review for your class, and the major question that students always ask me is something really simple like this one right here. How am I ever going to prepare for this? Unfortunately for you, I've been planning for this day from the beginning of the semester, and that means that series of lab packets that you've made, right, are going to help you. What I recommend you do is go through each of the bullet points on the review sheet and your lab packets to see what information you actually have available to you to actually do these. Some of them are not going to be there, like many of the tracts in the spinal cord information, like what are the, from say chapter 16, like what are the major spinal pathways. You're going to have to go do some review of that on your own without any information inside of your lab books. Okay? Meaning the things you've built. You have your lab notes for that too. That's not to say that you shouldn't be using those. The point that I'm making though is that you've actually started reviewing for your final exam all semester long. Okay? Cool. So you're going to, at the end of the day, you need to build a cell inside your mind's eye. You need to build the systems, the ones we've covered this semester. And let me just drop that in there. The major systems we've covered this semester are skin, or integumentary, right? Bone, or skeletal system. Muscular. You could throw in the joint or articulation. And then primarily after that, it's been all nervous system. And then described what they do, okay? So that you know what they are and what you're discussing. So finish that one right there, okay? How do I prioritize this? Well, if it isn't a cell, then there isn't a human with systems. What do I mean by that? Most of the work you've done this semester has been utilizing feedback systems, which have a specific set of requirements. There has to be a receptor, there has to be a cell, there has to be some way to integrate that information, there has to be some effect, right? So if we're thinking about positive and negative feedback systems, the major mechanisms for all of our systems here, what causes skin growth, what causes bone growth, what causes muscular development, how do we know we have enough oxygen? How do joints know when they're functioning properly? Articulate. T-I-O-N, put an I there. Okay? Okay, and then finally, so that's the way you want to be thinking about this. Okay, so, and maybe you're still overwhelmed. So how do I prioritize all of this? If it's me, right? Obviously, building a cell is probably the most important things you're going to overlook. Okay? You have to know how to build a phospholipid bilayer. You have to know where the cytoplasm is. You have to know where the organelles are. You have to know how we move materials in and out of a cell. What is the difference between pinocytosis and phagocytosis? That's the sort of stuff that is you just cannot overlook. The fine details of skin, what's the major difference between the types of skin? We'll go over some of these examples in a bit, right? Likewise, what are the different types of bone? Where do you find these different types of bone? Okay, so, when you're thinking about, how do you prioritize this? If you didn't do well on test 3, fine well, you're spending most of your time thinking about, in chapters 13 through 17. If you did okay on chapter 2, you understand how to build a single excitable neuron, well, you're doing okay. Okay, you just need to then figure out how to synthesize these into systems. Okay, so let's start here. This is the final exam, okay? This is its format. It's 150 questions. It's from chapters 1 through 6, 9, 10, 12 through 17. It's about 150 multiple choice type, true and false, matching, and sequence questions. There are approximately 11 questions from each chapter, and you'll be given 3 hours to complete this. But let's make sure we understand what this means. Multiple choice come in all of the forms you've seen this semester. It could be something really simple, like here's one of 5 things, like each of your multiple choice type questions. Or it could be, hey, here's a topic. Here is a specific type of Let me see if I can figure out a cranial nerve. Oh my God, think about just the cranial nerves. If I listed the important cranial nerves as far as you're concerned, right? Could you tell me what their responsibilities are? I mean, from my perspective, the most important cranial nerve inside this class is, of course, the vagus nerve. There'll be people who will argue it's glossopharyngeal, and there'll be people who will argue it may be hypoglossal for slightly different reasons, but at the end of the day, do you know what they're doing? Okay. I'm going to use Chapter 1 Introduction as probably the bar or the base by which we should be, thinking about some of this. When you're thinking about describing anatomical position, metabolism, and homeostasis, that's right, I'm going to start drawing. Sorry about that. You should, when you hear the word anatomical position, you have a cartoon inside your mind's eye. Yeah, hands are down to the side. Sorry about that. Let's erase that. Erase. Erase. Okay, let's start again. Patient, hands down by their side, thumb radiating outward, feet flat on the ground. Okay, patient's looking forward. Yay, fantastic. Correct anatomical position. And immediately come down here, look at regional names. Okay, directional terms, planes, sections. Once you have this thing in the correct anatomical position, be able to switch it around, cut it up. Okay, can you tell me where the correct organ is inside which body cavity, region, and quadrant, right? Remember, the diaphragm is where we actually delineate the abdominal pelvic cavity, right, relative to the entire ventral cavity. All right. So the same thing would be said for metabolism. Metabolism is, all of the catabolic. So let's put catabolic and anabolic, A for anabolic reactions, inside the body. And you have a series of things that break stuff down. You have a series of things that build stuff up. And you can think of examples of each of these all semester long. Anabolism, when we build proteins, we take individual amino acids, we synthesize them together using dehydration synthesis. Those are all anabolic reactions. That same egg sandwich you ate for breakfast had different types of proteins in it, and then you catabolized them. You broke the individual amino acids off one at a time. You destroyed its tertiary structure. You destroyed its secondary structure. Then you removed individual amino acids, namely its primary structure, at one at a time. And at the end of the day, all of this inside the normal human body is going to have a range, right? And I'll just put, say, pH here. So let's go 7.45 as the example. Because inside chemistry, you need to know the significance of this, right? And down here, 7.35. And this is the number of hydrogen protons per liter of solution. Okay, it's a logarithmic scale that describes the reactivity. And if these go higher or lower, then it means we have to have a feedback system that can take care of this, right? What do we do when our pH gets high and low? Inside AMP1, we don't tell you what we do. But we do tell you if you have calcium levels that are too high or too low, right? So that's a feedback system, right? Or if you get too cold, you start to shiver. That's a feedback system. Or if you're giving birth, right? You're stretching the smooth muscle walls of the uterus, and therefore you have that stretch signal going to the brain to release oxytocin, and there you go. So notice I didn't just give you the basic ones that are inside your textbook. I threw in some others as well. Okay. When we're thinking about how it is we build a human being, and this is the stuff that's really important you should have learned a long time ago, and maybe you just don't know, that essentially everybody's made up of elements, right? And those elements are going to ultimately be turned into an organism, or organism. Right? And that organism is you in the correct anatomical position with all of these other pieces of information. But in here, we have to build a cell. Here's a cell, right? And the cell is going to then be used to build tissues. Okay? And then tissues are going to be used to build organs. ORG. And the organs are going to then be used to make organ systems. So I'm just going to put systems here. SYS. And remember, I can't take out with the exception of your reproductive systems, any of your other systems, and you not die. Okay, so this suggests that there's a specific order, structural organization for the order, and you should understand large to small, small to large, like organism to element, element to organism. Okay. So if we're going to move here, then we're going to move to here. Oh, I need to get rid of that cartoon first. Move here. Chapter 2, chemistry piece. Okay, and what's the structure of an atom? Okay, what's an atomic number? If we're telling you to learn an atomic number, learn the definition of an atomic number. Learn why valence electrons are so important. Don't try to memorize all of the different elements inside the periodic table of elements. That's not what you want to be doing here. Those valence electrons are used to make specific types of chemical bonds. What are they? They're, literally I'm going to put in, I was going to put here. What are they? Are they covalent? Covalent? Are they ionic? Okay. What makes something hydrophilic? What makes something hydrophobic? Well, hydrophilic means it likes water. Okay. Hydrophobic means it doesn't like water. What would influence the rate of a chemical reaction? The first one thing that comes to mind is temperature, T-E-M-P. Make things warm, things go faster. Okay, increase the concentration. Concentration. Okay, that would be the other. What else can you do? You can change the amount of catalyst. Okay, so cat, increase, ink. Each of these things changes the chemical reaction, and the types of chemical reactions are anabolic, or we're going to put, let's change the vocabulary. Synthesis, S-Y-N, or hydrolysis, hydrolysis. So understand that for hydrolysis to occur, we have to have water available. For synthesis to occur, we actually make water. We make metabolic water. pH scales, numbers of hydrogens. Don't try and memorize the log value of all of these things. Try to understand what it means in terms of if we decrease the concentration of these, we make the solution more alkaline. If we decrease the numbers of these, we make the solution more acidic. Try to understand what I just said there. So as we're moving along, you have 4 groups of compounds that you had to build, right? We had to build carbs. We had to build protein. We had to build fats. And we had to build nucleic acids, right? We built all of these, and we used dehydration synthesis, cis, S-Y-S, okay, to build all of them, okay? And we would use hydrolysis to take them all apart, regardless of which one it is, right? And, you need to know what are the basic building blocks of carbohydrates, basic building blocks of proteins, basic building blocks of fats, basic building blocks of nucleic acids, okay? What are the structural organizations? Primary, secondary, tertiary. Enzymes require a specific conformational shape, and some of them require coenzymes. And notice what we did here is up here I called these catalysts. Down here, because they're protein, these are enzymes, and coenzymes are electrolytes. Electrolytes. Okay. ATP ultimately is a nucleic acid, but ATP is a sugar phosphate. Structure with a nucleic acid that stores energy. S-T-O-R-E-S. Temporarily, right? Okay. Cool. So that's how you want to think about chapter 2. You haven't read it, you don't understand it. Make sure at the very minimum you've gone through this list, sort of defined each of these structures for yourself. Notice I made this a little bit larger in font so you understand what we're trying to do here. Okay, so I'm going to pause here, and then we'll switch gears. We're going to look at a few more of the structures, meaning the areas inside of the review sheet, to see that there's a specific pattern we want you to pay attention to here, and I'm hoping you actually appreciate it. Okay, so we'll pick up in a few minutes.